o'clock, 9 o'clock on a Saturday? Only I'm sleeping at that time, especially on Saturdays and Sundays. But good morning to all of you, and it is so heartening to see the energy so early on a Saturday to discuss an issue that is not only important to you here in Edina and those in the entire state of Minnesota, but across the country. So it's fantastic, and I'm energized and jazzed just by being here with all of you. So, Secretary General, delegates, and special guests, today, though, I will pour more actionable plans to stop human trafficking leading to sexual exploitation, I cannot do so without discussing the broader problem of gender inequality. It is the fuel to human trafficking, the umbrella that allows human trafficking to fester. Holding that umbrella most often, it is men. And therefore, I will emphasize the essential role that men play in forming solutions. Now, to characterize the broader problem of gender inequality, I want to start with some words and what we associate with them. When you hear the words human trafficking, what do you think? Sex, women, girls. Issues of race, that's a black issue. Sexual orientation, it's about gay. Gender, it's a women's issue. And feminism, that's about angry women, isn't it? That is the insipid nature of sexism and misogyny the words we use connote. As leadership trainer Jackson Katz says, all of us, women and men, are conditioned by a dominant group's perspective on culture and language. In these examples, I gave you a male view. Delegates, no matter the home that you hail from, this is the unspoken reality, a problem of gender inequality that serves as fertile ground for travesties as great as human trafficking for sexual exploitation, and everything in between. In most cases, it is a human rights violation that is as old as the human race itself. Women as second-class citizens. Some argue since the writing of Adam and Eve and the apple, this has been the case. Today in 2015, though, there are two very opposite renaissances at loggerheads in the fight for women and girls' rights, one bad and one good. The bad renaissance is a pandemic. Today we have more slaves than at any point in the history of the world. Today more money is involved in slavery than at any point in the history of the world. 2015, on history's line chart, we lie at the very lowest point, the nadir. And it's getting worse. The estimated number of slaves grows still. The United Nations International Labor Organization raised its slave estimate from 12 million last decade to 21 million in 2012. Other estimates include as many as 200 million people across the world. Now, the amount of profit in trading human flesh, that was also just reassessed from 30 billion to 150 billion US dollars annually. And delegates, no land is excluded. In every corner of human trafficking, the group subjugated more than any other, women and girls. 3 out of 4 trafficking victims are female, the United Nations estimates. And here is why it is a male problem. Those who buy, sell, and rent these modern-day slaves, men who constitute 67% of convicted traffickers. Like Amador Cortez Meza, he trafficked women and girls up the United States east and southern human trafficking corridors. One survivor, we'll call Maria, told me for an NBC story that Cortez Meza would rent women for weeks on end to local pimps. They in turn would force these women to have sex up to 40, 50, even 60 times a day, including Maria. She and others were kept like animals, caged in basements all across the United States, including here. Then there are the Johns. ABT Associates estimates 15% of men in the United States have bought commercial sex. If we use that estimate worldwide, as many as half sex. Many of them buy sex from women, men, boys, and girls illegally. Now, statistics available on Johns themselves, it is really tough to find. The overwhelming research in trafficking focuses on the victims, most often here, women and girls. Shouldn't there be more information on those who are buying sex from traffic victims, though? Without Johns, there would be no market for trafficked sex slaves. With no demand, supply withers. So the non-focus on Johns in research is consistent with how easy it is to be a John. Working undercover for a CNN story, I did pose as a John once. We visited an underground brothel in Southeast Asia. I selected a 15-year-old girl we'll call May. May was displayed like she was meat at a market. The madam clapped her hands, turned to the back, barked into a room. Then May, along with 35 other girls, marched in single file. They sat under some flickering fluorescent lights. A hazy glass wall separated me and them. The madam described each girl like grains of beef. That's the popular one. That's the fun one. That's the pretty one. I pulled out the equivalent of 25 US dollars. May was mine for one day. She got her things. She even had a teddy bear packed with her. For 24 hours, she could have been with us, but instead we interviewed her. We were very clear in what we wanted to accomplish. Now, if May were caught at any point in this process, she would have been arrested. She would have been charged, not me, the John. For that story, I had the opportunity to work with UNIFEM, and one strategy that they were using to combat sex tourism was to publish the names of Johns after busts. Very uncommon. And surprise, guess what happened? Trafficking dissipated significantly. Human trafficking for sexual exploitation is an example of the modern state of women's rights. While the discussion about gender inequality and gender equality and sexual exploitation often connotes the idea of women and girls, it really should connote the idea of men. Here in the United States, we convene today at the United Nations. The conventional wisdom says the U.S. should be one of the leaders in gender equality and certainly free of inequality's worst outcomes, human trafficking for sexual exploitation. Those problems can't be here. Or can they? As you might know, women make 78 cents for every dollar a man does for the same job in America. 60,000 slaves are estimated to be here right now in America. And every 45 seconds, a woman is sexually assaulted in America. The reason, activist Byron Hurt says, is a big part of the problem is how we simply talk about women and girls. And what we think we need to do as men to be men, what we think we need to do to reach manhood. It is the herd-like mythology of what the male gender stereotype might be. Listen to the words here. In the U.S., if you are masculine, how do you talk about women and girls? Are they hoes? Are shaking butts rubbing up against men the fashion? Are you pimping when you do well with the ladies, or are you a player? And if you aren't, and you stand up for equality and women's rights, are you called gay or queer? Words twisted to mean something derogatory. Every country in the world shares the problems that the U.S. has with gender inequality, and as a result, human trafficking for sexual exploitation is the problem. And that is the unfortunate bad renaissance that we are living through. But now to the good renaissance. It is as equal and opposite as the first. In no time has there been the energy, the awareness, and the impetus to treat our sisters, our mothers, and our daughters as equals. There are organizations like Not for Sale Fighting Slavery through business solutions, social entrepreneurs, can create businesses that weed out trafficking, raise awareness, and still make a profit. Tao, a private equity firm, is trying to raise $1 billion to invest in supply chain efficiency. It's looking at how one business buys one widget from another, and then from another, and then from another. And in that web of suppliers, how trafficked labor often makes its way into the products that you and I buy every day. Just like over 80% of the clothes that each and every one of you are wearing today, slave labor was used. Then there is George, who lives in El Salvador. He discovered something in high school. If he got his girlfriend pregnant, his community would ostracize her. She would become a pariah. George would become a man. He would be seen as macho. Well, George loved his girlfriend so much, he decided to become an evangelist. His religion became treating girls as equals, afforded the same rights and privileges that he has. He holds right now regular after-school trainings with other boys his age to share his newfound gospel. The color he wears is pink. He has been called those names, and he has lost friends. George left the herd that many are afraid to leave. Peer pressure lost, though. George telling me the old pack, they were never his friends to begin with. Now, George, like me, is now a spokesperson for a global campaign called Because I'm a Girl, to find male voices to talk about gender equality. It's run by an NGO called Plan International that operates in 70 countries for almost 8 decades now. In our field missions, we found a treasure trove of pent-up energy to fight gender inequality and sexual exploitation of women and girls. The Because I'm a Girl campaign is so successful, the campaign name has almost overshadowed the name of the NGO itself. Here's another fighter for the good Renaissance, James Kofi Annan. He is a former child slave. He was exploited for sex and labor. But then this happened. James escaped from his trafficker, a fisherman in Ghana. Even more amazing is what he did after. He got himself through college. He became a manager at Barclays Bank as an investment banker. And then he quit. Why? He could no longer balance his work with his real passion, and that was to start a school called Challenging Heights to save children from slavery. His story is one I am proud that I got to tell. A child slave who escapes, gets a college degree, quits to break the slavery cycle, and I consider James now a friend. James Kofi Annan, thank you for helping to lead the global renaissance for equal opportunity. Now I finish with the most ambitious effort of the good renaissance. It comes from the United Nations itself. UN Women, with emphatic support from the Secretary General, has an audacious goal. By this September, the HeForShe campaign would like to have 1 billion men worldwide in support for gender equality. The point, this is not about men versus women, this is about human rights. December 23rd, 2014, I became one of the more than 200,000 men and boys who went to the HeForShe.org website and put my name down to this goal for audacity. Together, we have generated over 1 billion conversations on why men and boys need to be audacious. I give you one challenge today. While you may not sign up to be an abolitionist, you may not join your local NGO today, you can do this, each of you. Sign up just 2 people to the HeForShe campaign, whether it's you and another, or 2 friends, or family members. Just 2. Why should you join the effort? Well, as men, we should engage because we can say, and with things that we can do that women cannot. We are more often the elected officials in Congresses and parliaments. We are more often the CEOs in Fortune 1000 businesses globally, and we are more often the judges and mayors across the country. That is why I say trafficking is not about women and girls. It's about traffickers and Johns who are predominantly men. Why I say gender is not just about women. It's about men and their stereotyped role as male. And why I say feminism is not about angry women. It is about angry men standing for equality, like me. I am he for she.